Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is Sheila Aliens. You're about to see some clips from the World Economic Forum meeting that took place a couple days ago. And then I'm going to be talking about how I think this all relates to the recent public sector stock market manipulation here with GameStop and all of that. And then I'm also going to show you the World Economic Forum's creepy NWO website. So let's take a listen.
And now in the political world, we're less than a few hours into the first week of the Biden-Harris administration. But in advance of that transition here in the U.S., we saw major new commitments by the European Union, by China, by Japan, by South Korea. And now the world appears to be close to a new alignment to start flowing a mix of private and public investment funds into accelerating this transition.
Al Gore spoke of a new alignment. It's long been said that in some ways the private
you get this alignment globally, 127 countries and counting, with commitments to net zero, and I'd put the emphasis on and counting. And that global net zero is cascading down through the
So in order to reach their goal of zero net carbon emissions by whatever year, they're first going to have people pull their investments out of fossil fuels and old technologies that aren't sustainable, and they want them to put investments into sustainable, renewable energy and those type of companies. And they need, for whatever reason, I don't know how this stuff works, but they need the public sector to kick off that funding to start it off. I don't know why. And they want the public sector to want to invest in these type of new, green, sustainable technologies. I don't know why they need the public. Maybe the public holds just as much money as the private. I'm not sure. I don't know anything about stocks. The NWO has a very sleek app that details in great detail every step of the plan that they have to take over the world and bring on globalism. It's a beautiful app. You can search any topic and find it intricately laid out and woven into the plan. They don't like to call themselves the New World Order. They're called the World Economic Forum. And they just had their annual little meeting between January 25th and the 29th, which is when the GameStop Reddit debacle started. That was what they were talking about the day before, was getting the individual investors on board with their agenda, which is called net zero. It's one of many agendas. They have a lot of agendas. Wow, do they have agendas. But this particular one with cryptocurrency, it involves the environment. So it's called net zero, and it's about carbon emissions. So they want to lower carbon emissions ultimately.
Al Gore, maybe I can start with you because you've had the privileged position of sitting both on the public side of the equation and now on the private side. What are the constraints? Why aren't these trillions of dollars in the hard to abate industries actually flowing?
We are in an almost unprecedented global transition. Many call it the sustainability revolution, empowered by new digital technologies with much greater precision. You know, a couple of decades ago, one of the oil ministers in Saudi Arabia said publicly, the Stone Age ended not because of a shortage of stones, and the petroleum age will end not because of a shortage of petroleum. We're seeing that now. The obstacles you ask about are in part because the metrics we have used since Bretton Woods do not take into account negative externalities nor positive externalities. The benefits of investments in public goods do not take into account inequalities in the distribution of incomes and net worths, do not take into account the depletion of resources like topsoil and groundwater and others. And there are other deficiencies.
I know you've also done a lot. How do you see this agenda rolling out in terms of the cooperation that there needs to be between that public and that private? We've seen during COVID and the development of a vaccine, we've seen the most incredible collaboration that's taken place to speed up the vaccine. We haven't seen that on the net zero agenda yet.
Now remember, this was the 27th of January. That's the day of, or possibly the day before, that the GameStop situation began. The 27th of January. Here they are discussing how they could possibly get the public to cooperate with their investments to go along with their agenda, which is to reach zero net carbon emissions by 2050 or whatever it is. So they're talking about this right before all that stuff popped off. And actually, this brown-haired lady didn't say anything interesting. She's very boring. The link to the full video is in the description below if you want to go watch it. These people are super rich. They're on here talking about all the trillions of dollars that they have and what exactly they plan to do with it over the next 50 years for the whole world. Like I mentioned, they have countless agendas for every possible thing you could imagine. So as a microcosm, we're just going to take a look at what's going on right now, because it's a big headline over the last couple of days, is the stock market and crypto coins, and how Redditors, just regular users, got together and they are purposefully driving up the price of certain stocks that were on their way out to just fizzle out, like GameStop, which was a pretty much dead company, AMC Theaters, and a couple of other just zombie companies that weren't going anywhere. You know, Nokia, that's an old company that you don't hear much from these days. So Redditors noticed that these hedge fund managers bought a bunch of short buys, I think is what they call it. They bought a bunch of these stocks when they were low. It was a low price because nobody looks at those stocks anymore. They bought a bunch of them, but they borrowed the money from an investor to get the stocks. And then they immediately sold the stocks at the same price that they just bought them at. Okay, so then when it dips down like they would expect it to normally when nobody's paying attention, they would buy it when it was lower than what they just bought and traded it at. And then they would make a profit off the difference somehow. I'm sure it makes sense somehow. So it's just a scheme that they do. And so that's what they're doing. And Reddit took notice and they said, hey, they're about to do that here because they just bought and sold all of them. And they're going to hope to buy them back at a lower rate. So let's go buy that stock and make it higher and make them buy it from us for a way higher rate than they bought and sold it for to begin with. And they tanked these hedge funds for more than they are worth because they had to buy back at a ridiculously higher rate. And nobody from the Reddit community, they weren't letting go of it. They kept holding on to it just to drive it higher. I guess that's what they call a short squeeze or a squeeze out or something like that. I don't know anything about stocks, so please bear with me. But I do get the gist of this, and I hope I'm explaining it okay for you. So that's what's happening now. But come to find out, you go to this New World Order website where they're telling everything that they're doing. In my opinion, they did that on purpose. They need the public, the Redditors, the regular users. They need to know that they can steer them where they need them to be steered when they need them to be steered. They're going to be steering this school of fish, which is now swimming around trying to find the next stock to fuck with collectively. And it's really fun and everything. And it's cool to see that we can mess with the system and that we have power. However, you're just a pawn. Now they know you can be steered. After you guys are done playing around right now, they're going to start, in my opinion, possibly guilt-tripping you into investing that money into actual good stocks that will help the world. Sustainable energy, renewable energies, getting out of fossil fuel. Like, they're going to start using you for their agendas. And I know it all sounds really good and dandy, but there's something sinister going on behind there. And they're just going to use you guys. They needed to know that you were steerable, and you guys are very steerable. You're steering each other like a school of fish right now. Once you realize the power you guys have, you're going to want to use it for the greater good. And that's when they're going to start, you guys are going to complete this net zero promise that they have signed to have done within the next 50 years. You're probably going to have it done within 10.
Al Gore spoke of a new alignment. It's long been said that in some ways the private sector has been in advance of the public sector in beginning to look at what this would mean for regulation, for metrics, for incentives. Do you see a switch here? And as you look at the work you're doing for COP26, do you see that public sector now greater involvement coming to fruition?
Which is to pick up where Al left off, which is you get this alignment globally, 127 countries and counting, with commitments to net zero and put the emphasis on and counting. And that global net zero is cascading down through the private sector. Oliver can speak of many things, but one of the things he can emphasize is what's happening with asset owners, so the large pension funds, insurance companies, sovereign wealth funds, and their commitments, explicit commitments to net zero. A partner of ours at Generation Management has set up a asset manager alliance of over 9 trillion of assets and their commitments to net zero. And we will look to for COP by Glasgow to have those types of commitments across the financial sector, running into the private banking sector as well. Now, Caroline, your question is spot on, which is what are public sector institutions doing in parallel, and do they have the full orientation?
I don't know what the ultimate goal is here. Their ultimate goal is, as they state, globalism. You know, one big government for the world. They're not shy about this. And I just please explore this website because it's too much for one person. Everything's laid out. You have a topic on your mind that you think they're messing with, look it up. They'll tell you exactly what they plan to do and how they're going to do it. It's just interesting to see how it manifests in our real world, like with this Reddit thing. These guys think they're part of a revolution, and they are, but it's a temporary fake one that serves a purpose for them, ultimately for the elite, uber elite, rich folks. Planned all that shit in Switzerland and flipped the switch the same day that all that stuff popped off. They were talking about that. They talked about a lot of things. Highly sophisticated people. Okay, guys, we all need to take a look at this website. I just feel like it's a bigger deal than anybody wants to lend any attention to for some reason, but it's freaky. These people know what they're doing. They don't deal with the minutia of it. They are the ones controlling everything. They're on there talking about how Biden will comply with everything that they want. Like it's already a done deal. It's not even a question. They're speaking for him. He's a puppet. And I hope you guys will take a look at that website. You have to sign up for it. It's free. And no, I'm obviously not a shill for them, but you have to sign up for it in order to see like the map that you can click on, the visualization of it all. It's really crazy. And yeah, so just sign up for free, use a fake name, fake email, whatever, a throwaway email, and start digging in. It's constantly updated, you know? Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe this isn't as interesting as I think it is. Leave your comments below. And thank you so much for watching.
I heard men get straight from holding babies all the holding babies. I heard men get holding babies. I heard men get straight from. I heard men get.
I could have done more. And I have and I aim both of those.
I heard men get straight from. You have a kid.
Worst day to that. It was like a narwhal story. Hold on. I could have done more. And I have retard old.
Is it from holding babies? I heard men get straight. I heard men get straight. Holding babies all the holding babies all the.
I had the worst.
Old men. I heard men get straight.
I had the worst.
Old men. I heard men get straight. Old men. I heard men get straight.
I had the worst.
I heard men get straight. Is it from holding babies? I heard men get straight. I heard men get straight. Holding babies all the. Holding babies all the.
I had the worst.
Old men. I heard men get straight.
I had the worst.
Old men. I heard men get straight. Old men. I heard men get straight.
I had the worst.
I heard men get straight.
I could have done more. And I have and I